No job in America collects more insane sentences per hour than working behind an espresso bar. Baristas get handed demands that would make a lawyer laugh, delivered with total conviction by grown adults, usually before 9 in the morning. These are the complaints they had to stand there and hear all the way through. 1. In Austin, a barista got handed a phone with a photo of a golden retriever on the screen and was expected to reproduce the dog in foam. Not a leaf. Not a heart. A likeness. The guy held the reference up over the counter like he was commissioning a portrait, and then he graded the results. First latte, rejected. Second latte, rejected. On the third one, his notes got specific. The ears were hanging too floppy, and the nose, in his expert judgment, had drifted into Labrador. 3 tries, 3 failures. All of it in steamed milk sitting on top of a hot drink that starts collapsing the second it's poured. And once he ran out of corrections, he still didn't leave. He stood there another 20 minutes explaining artistic integrity to people with 11 other orders on the rail. A grown man demanding permanence from a substance that dissolves before you reach the parking lot. 2. 4 people walk in, order a full round of drinks, and turn around to find every seat taken except the best one in the building. The velvet couch. Occupied by a woman with nothing in front of her. No cup, no plate, no napkin. They ask if she can slide over or free it up, and she says no. Then she explains why. She's been on those cushions long enough to have squatter's rights. That is the actual argument. And she wasn't lying about the time because she'd been sitting there since 6 in the morning, when the doors barely opened, and in 3 hours, she had bought exactly nothing from the business she was living inside. She also came prepared. She'd brought a little sign from her own house and stood it up on the armrest, letting the room know the couch was off limits to commoners. $0 spent, 3 hours logged, and a group of paying customers standing around holding hot drinks with nowhere to put them. 3. At some point during the argument, she tried to bribe a barista with a drumstick. That's where this one lands, so let's back up. A vegan coffee shop in Denver, where the whole menu is built on the promise that nothing in the building ever had a heartbeat. In walks a woman carrying a bucket of fried chicken big enough to hold paint. She doesn't eat it in her car, doesn't stash it in a bag. She takes the center table, pops the lid, and starts working through it in front of a room full of people who came there specifically to avoid that. Staff came over and explained the rule about outside food, with a little extra emphasis on the meat part. And she went off. Turns out she has a condition, and this condition requires animal protein every 30 minutes. No flexibility. Turns out the shop was also excluding her, and excluding her, she said, was a violation of her civil rights. Then came the greasy peace offering, held out across the table. 1 piece of chicken in exchange for being left alone. 4. She wanted a cooling station. Not a splash of cold milk, not a cup of ice on the side. A station. Staff, fans, and a cup of coffee getting blown on until it dropped to exactly 140 degrees, and then handed over at that number. Not 145, not 138. She had a figure in her head, and she expected the shop to hit it. Her complaint to the manager was that serving a drink hot enough to make steam was irresponsible, like the steam was a warning label nobody had read out to her. And remember, this woman ordered a hot coffee, asked for it, paid for it, then treated the heat like a manufacturing defect. A different shop might have quietly poured her an iced latte and moved on. This one got a safety briefing from a customer holding exactly what she'd requested. 5. Nobody behind an espresso bar owns a hammer. That had to be said out loud in Florida to a woman who wanted one used on her drink. Her cold brew had come with square ice, and square ice she'd determined melts too slowly. Slow melt meant the drink wasn't loosening up on her timetable, and her drinking pace was apparently something the shop had signed up to manage. So she pushed the cup back with a work order. Crush the ice by hand. Not stirred, not swapped, not topped off with water. Crushed. By an employee. With a hammer. During a morning rush. The staff told her there's no hammer behind the counter and nobody free to do demolition work on frozen water. She heard them out, carried the whole drink over to the trash can, dropped it in, and headed for the door, announcing to nobody in particular that customer service in this country is finished. 6. She sat in that Philly shop for a full hour with 2 fingers pressed to her temple, breathing carefully, wincing every so often like a woman being slowly drained of life. The cause of all this suffering, according to her, was the barista's hair. Purple. Bright, loud, unmissable purple. Her position was that the color had set off a migraine, that a migraine is physical pain, and that physical pain acquired on the premises earns you 20% off your order. She called their whole look aggressive. She wanted the shop to pay her, in coffee, for what their color choices had done to her skull. Management gave her 20% off nothing at all. So she stayed, and she suffered. And here's the best part. She spent that entire hour with her eyes locked on the girl whose hair was allegedly wounding her. If purple light were really cooking your brain, you'd think step 1 would be turning your chair around. 7. Here's the thing about this guy. He didn't want coffee. He wasn't waiting for the doors to open so he could grab a cup before work. He showed up 20 minutes early and hammered on the glass hard enough to pull a barista out from the back. And when she got to the door, half expecting an emergency, he started yelling at her through it. The lights inside were too bright, and in his view, they were making the whole block look bad at that hour. That was the message. No question about opening time, no request, just a man delivering a lighting complaint through a locked door to a business that hadn't opened yet and had never taken a single dollar from him. His entire claim to authority was that he lived somewhere nearby. She left the lights exactly where they were and went back to setting up the shop. 8. 3 hours in a chair, 3 outlets in use, and 1 small tea. That's the entire spend from a guy in San Francisco who then informed the staff that their shop was on the hook for his investment losses. He'd been trading crypto on his laptop, and their Wi-Fi stalled on him for about 5 seconds. 5 seconds. In his telling, that little hiccup vaporized thousands of dollars he was absolutely about to make, which means the money never existed anywhere except inside his own forecast. He decided that a router in a cafe made the cafe a party to his trade, so somebody there owed him. And after a full morning of burning their power and their internet without buying so much as a refill, he walked up to the counter and asked for a voucher to make up for how the market had treated him. A voucher from a place that sells muffins and drip coffee. 9. Somewhere in a Starbucks corporate inbox sits a formal letter about a barista who smiled too much. That's the grievance. Not a wrong order, not a burnt shot, not somebody being short with her. A woman at a suburban location decided the morning crew was too cheerful, and she read that cheerfulness as hostile, like a performance being staged at her expense. Her reasoning grew from there. People who don't function before noon shouldn't have to stand in line absorbing all that energy, and a room full of upbeat employees was, by her definition, a bad environment for her as a customer. Then came the ask, typed out and mailed to a company worth billions. When they serve her, she wants the staff holding a flat blank face. No smile, nothing to react to. Because if an employee grins at you, you might feel obligated to be pleasant back, and she was not walking into that trap. 10. Every single day in July, this woman walked into the same shop and asked for a free large latte. Same order, same justification. It was her birthday month. Staff explained the policy roughly 30 times. 1 free drink on the actual day you were born. 1 day, the way birthdays have functioned for all of recorded history. She wasn't interested in that interpretation. In her version, the whole month came with the same coupon, and turning her down was discrimination. Ageism, specifically. She said the word out loud, at a register, to a teenager. A loyal customer, robbed of 30 extra lattes nobody ever promised her. And she kept showing up, which is honestly the part that impresses me. Most people quit after the 3rd no. 11. The door finally opens and out steps a man looking absolutely fantastic. Clean shave, fresh face, hair handled, the calm of somebody who has recently been washed. Behind him, the single-stall restroom of a Philadelphia coffee shop, which he had held for 45 minutes with a gym bag on the floor. He'd given himself a full wash at the sink, shaved, and run through his entire routine while the line outside grew to 10 people. When a barista finally knocked, He came out annoyed and told her she was intruding on his privacy. His logic ran like this. He had bought a macchiato, and buying a macchiato buys you the bathroom for as long as it takes to feel presentable. Then, on his way out, he asked the staff for a clean towel. He had packed a razor, soap, and a change of clothes, and somehow left the towel at home. 12. Picture a stranger's hands inside a $20,000 espresso machine. That's what the crew in a New Jersey shop was looking at. The guy had tasted his shot, decided it pulled too fast, and leaned over the counter to fix the pressure himself on equipment that gets calibrated by technicians who do nothing else all day. One wrong setting and every drink after his comes out wrong. His qualifications, which he announced to the room, amounted to reading a lot about coffee at home. He informed the staff they were beating the flavor out of the beans and clearly had no idea what they were doing. The manager picked up the phone and said the word police out loud, and that didn't slow him down even slightly. He got louder. He was here to rescue a business that was obviously circling the drain, and now that he'd fixed their machine for them, somebody ought to cut him a check for the consultation. He wanted to be paid for the thing he was being thrown out for. 13. A man in a Portland cafe once gave a public speech about being held back by the establishment, and the establishment in this case was 2 employees standing between him and an espresso machine. He'd waited 3 minutes for his drink. 3. Somewhere in that 3rd minute, he decided the crew was moving too slow for a man of his pace, so he put a hand on the counter and a knee up, going for the machine to do it himself. He had a title ready for that. He makes coffee at home, and in his mind that qualified him to work the bar. The staff stepped in and shut it down, which is when the wording got dramatic. He wasn't a customer climbing furniture anymore. He was homegrown talent, being crushed by people who feared him. He also let the whole room know he could run the place better than the owner does. All that fire, over a wait shorter than a song on the radio. 14. Cords were running across the walkway of a crowded Portland cafe, and customers were stepping over them holding hot drinks. The source of all that cable was one guy at a 2-person table who had brought a power strip from home. 6 outlets, long extension cord, the whole setup. He had a laptop going, a phone, a tablet, and a desk lamp because apparently the cafe's own lighting wasn't dialed in for his eyes. A barista asked him to get the cords out of the aisle before somebody went down, and he had his defense loaded. He'd paid $5 for a latte, and in his accounting, that $5 came with power included. Then he pushed it further. As a regular, he figured he was already chipping in on what the place pays the electric company every month, which is roughly like saying a cheeseburger makes you part owner of a cow. So, should cafes start metering the people who run a private office out of the corner table, or is the free outlet just part of the deal now? 15. This one ends on a napkin. A guy in San Francisco spent 10 solid minutes at the register in a standoff over 50 cents, which is what the shop charges to put oat milk in your drink instead of dairy. 50 cents. His argument was that cow's milk makes him sick, so charging extra for the only milk he can actually drink amounted to discrimination against a medical condition. A tax on his own body, basically. Then he took a hard left and asked to see the store's tax records so he could confirm for himself that oat milk really does cost the business more than the regular kind. Nobody handed him any paperwork, obviously. So he paid, took his latte, sat down, and wrote out a note by hand, threatening to put a lawyer on Big Dairy and everybody making money off it. Then he left the note on the table like it was a legal filing, and walked out with the drink he'd just paid full price for, 50 cents in all. 16. A woman in Seattle threatened to get the police involved over her own teeth. Here's how you arrive at that. She ordered an iced coffee, drank some of it, then brought it back to the counter demanding every penny back because the drink was too cold. Too cold. An iced coffee. She told the barista, a kid of 19, that the chill went straight into her sensitive teeth and that nobody had warned her ahead of time that dropping ice into a beverage would pull the temperature down that far. She appeared to be learning this for the first time, standing there holding a cup she had specifically asked to be made with ice. The manager came over and walked her through it kindly. Ice is colder than coffee. Ice in coffee makes the coffee colder. That's the entire mechanism. She listened to all of it and answered with a threat to call the cops and report the drink as an attack on her teeth, filing charges on behalf of her own molars. 17. A group of guys in neon safety vests sat in a coffee shop eating breakfast, and a woman decided they were ruining her career. She's an influencer, small time, mid-photo shoot, and those men were sitting in the back of her shot. So she asked the staff to move them. Not turn the camera, not pick a different table. Move the customers, physically, out of frame. These are guys who'd been up since 5 doing real work, taking 20 minutes for coffee, and now they were a production problem. Her pitch to the manager was that her posts count as free advertising for the shop, so the least they could do was hand her a clean background. She didn't want regular-looking people junking up her frame while she was working. Working, in this case, meaning taking pictures of herself. The men in the vests never even knew it happened. They ate, they went back to the job, blissfully unaware they'd been reclassified as scenery in somebody else's brand. 18. A woman in Las Vegas walked back into a coffee shop carrying a crushed empty cup and set it on the counter like she was entering evidence at trial. 10 minutes earlier, she'd been in the parking lot, and somewhere between the door and her car, she dropped the latte. On the ground, gone. Most of us swear a little and get on with the day. She built a case. Her theory was that the cup itself was at fault, too slick to hold, a genuine design defect, and that a shop handing out cups like that should also hand out one of those textured sleeves for free, so this exact tragedy can't happen. Since they hadn't, the spill was on them. She wanted a full refund, and she floated suing over the caffeine she never got to drink. 10 feet outside the building, a woman lost a coffee to gravity and tried to turn it into a product liability case. 19. Right in the middle of a rush in Detroit, the card reader died and the whole line locked up. Nobody could pay. Nobody could leave. The manager went hunting for the problem and found it about 6 feet away, sitting in a chair. A customer had reached behind the counter, yanked the plug out of the payment terminal, and put his electric scooter on the outlet instead. Caught red-handed, he didn't fold. He explained that getting his scooter charged mattered more than a bunch of small coffee orders, meaning everybody else's drinks plus the shop's ability to take money at all. Then he climbed to higher ground. The place doesn't offer enough outlets for the public, so really he'd been forced into this, and charging an electric vehicle is a favor to the planet. He killed a small business's register during its busiest hour and framed himself as the responsible party in the room. 20. A barista once had to give a customer a guided tour of 2 bean hoppers to prove he hadn't drugged her. She'd ordered a decaf latte, taken a few sips, and come back to the counter 5 minutes later saying her heart was pounding and she could feel caffeine moving through her body. Her conclusion was that the shop had slipped her the real thing on purpose, as a joke, on a paying customer. So he showed her the machine. The decaf hopper, full to the brim. The regular hopper, nearly empty after a whole morning of everybody else's orders. Physical proof in beans, 6 inches from her face. She looked right at it and didn't budge, because whatever she consults instead of evidence was telling her something else, and she trusted her own psychic reading over the actual inventory. Then she asked for her money back plus a gift card, as compensation for emotional distress caused by an event that never happened outside her head. 21. There's a woman in New Orleans who brings a red pen with her to breakfast. She sat down with the printed menu at a coffee shop, went through it line by line, and circled every spelling mistake she could find like she was marking up a student paper. Then she carried the menu up to the manager and presented her findings. The headline crime. They had butchered the word cappuccino, and butchering an Italian word was, she explained, an insult to her Italian heritage. From there, it turned philosophical. In her view, sloppy spelling in a business tells you the people running it are lazy thinkers, and lazy thinkers had wrecked her entire morning as a paying customer. And the compensation she wanted for all that hardship? Breakfast on the house, a bagel and a coffee, comped, because a printed menu had 1 letter in the wrong place. 22. A guy in Denver was so bothered by a barista's tattoos that he went home and wrote the owner an email about it. A long one. His complaint was that the ink kept pulling his eyes off his espresso, and he couldn't properly appreciate the drink with all that artwork moving around behind the counter. He had a theory attached. Art goes on the walls of a business. it does not go on the skin of the person handing you a cup. As he put it, the tattoos were polluting the way his coffee looked to him, which he seems to believe is a thing that can happen to coffee. And then he named his fix: long sleeves, on the staff, through a 90-degree summer. He wanted a whole crew sweating through a heat wave with their arms covered, so one stranger could look at his cup without a tattoo in the picture. 23. 2 feet. That's how far this guy was sitting from the steam wand when he asked the staff to stop making lattes. Not turn the volume down because there isn't one. Stop. For 20 minutes, no drinks at all, so he could finish a Zoom call in peace inside a high-end Manhattan espresso bar. He had walked into a small room whose entire personality is a machine that shrieks into milk all day, chosen the seat closest to it, and then requested silence. They said no, because other people had already paid for those lattes. So he took it public. 1 star, plus a written accusation that the staff had tanked his career on purpose and that nobody working there understands how business gets done. His career ended by a coffee bar doing the exact thing it exists to do at the volume it has always done it. 24. You're sitting in a Vermont coffee shop and you hear a toaster pop behind your chair. Not from the kitchen, behind your chair. A man had walked in carrying his own 4-slice toaster from home, found the outlet nearest a stranger's seat, plugged it in, and started working his way through a loaf of sourdough right there in the dining area. His reason for skipping the menu was that the shop's bagels were mass-produced garbage beneath his standards, so he'd brought his own bread, the good stuff, and he was preparing it on site. The manager came over to explain that customers don't get to run kitchen appliances in a room where people are eating. The guy heard that as rudeness. He said the place had no hospitality. Then he offered them a tip for the future. They really ought to set aside a small kitchen for guests who bring their own bread from home. 25. A man in Chicago didn't like packages sitting out on his porch where anybody could grab them, so he came up with a solution. He started having his mail sent to the coffee shop down the street. Not his coffee shop, just a small independent place he goes to. He never asked permission either. Boxes simply started arriving with his name on them, and the baristas kept taking them in. Then one morning, a delivery driver rolled up with a mini fridge, an appliance, for a customer. He fully expected the crew to sign for it, wrestle it inside, and hold it in the back room until he had a free afternoon to come collect it. They told him flat out he was out of his mind, and he answered with math. He spends about $10 a week in that shop. $10 a week in his accounting buys you a signature, a loading crew, and a storage unit from a business with maybe 4 spare feet of floor space. 26. In the middle of a packed Dallas coffee shop at peak morning hour, a woman ran a full intervention on her friend. The real kind. Tears, hard truths, the works, 3 feet from other people's eggs. And then she went and complained to the staff about the noise, specifically the dishes. Somebody in back was rinsing spoons, and the clanking, she felt, was landing right on top of the emotional high point of the conversation. She wanted it stopped. A working kitchen put on pause so her friend could fall apart without any background sound. She wasn't finished either. She turned to the next table and asked the man sitting there to chew his croissant more quietly. An actual request, made to a stranger eating breakfast in a room he had also paid to sit in. So what's the move when the table beside you turns into a therapy session? Headphones on and mind your business? Or grab your cup and go? 27. The battery hit 1%, and he decided that qualified as an emergency. So a regular at a Boston shop reached across the counter, lifted the barista's own phone off her charging dock, and started using it. Her personal phone. Off her charger, in front of her. She told him to put it back, and instead of putting it back, he started arguing that things in a shared space belong to everybody, her private property included. And the crisis he needed the phone for? An Instagram post, which he ranked above her right to own her own things. Then he asked her for the passcode out loud, with a straight face, so he could scroll his notifications while her phone powered his social media. What would you even do standing behind that counter, watching a customer thumb through your phone like it came with the building? 28. Somebody put on floral perfume, delicate stuff, walked into a Seattle coffee shop and then complained that the coffee shop smelled like coffee. The roasting was overpowering her scent, and she brought the manager two possible remedies. One, they could spray lavender air freshener around the room to cover up the smell of their own product. Two, and this is the one worth sitting with, they could stop roasting beans until she finished her herbal tea. Shut down production. Then she explained what actually bothered her about the aroma, and it went somewhere else entirely. She said the smell of coffee comes across as harsh and overly male, and that it makes the room feel cold toward anybody who came in for tea. So now the roaster was a hostility problem, and the proposed cure was a can of lavender. 29. One small black coffee. That was the entire purchase behind what happened in a busy Atlanta shop, where a guy strung yellow caution tape across a four-person booth and claimed the whole thing for himself. Real caution tape, the kind that means a road is closed. He carried it in with him, taped off the seats, and sat down alone while other customers stood around holding drinks with nowhere to go. His explanation was that he's a delicate artistic type working on a screenplay, and that he needs roughly 10 feet of empty space around him so other people's moods don't leak into his writing. 10 feet. Inside a cafe. The manager told him to pull the tape down and give the booth back to people who wanted to sit in it. He argued that he had rented that space, and his proof of rental was the cheapest coffee on the board. $4, a roll of tape, and a screenplay the world is never going to see. 30. A coat. Draped across the only leather chair in a busy DC shop at 8 in the morning by a man who then walked out the door and went to the gym. 2 hours. Not a bathroom break, not a phone call outside. A full workout, while a designer jacket held the best seat in the building hostage. Eventually, a college kid picked the coat up, set it aside, and sat down, which is the only sane act performed by anybody in this story. Then the owner of the coat came back, saw a stranger in his chair, and started saying he was going to call the cops and report the chair as stolen. In his mind, dropping something of yours on a seat locks that seat down for the rest of the day. A jacket, doing the work of a deed. 2 hours on a treadmill, and he came back genuinely expecting the room to have honored his coat. 31. The barista's mistake, apparently, was assuming she'd been drinking it, and that cup was almost gone. A caramel macchiato with a whole list of modifications called out at the register, taken down to the last inch. Then she carried it back to the counter and said she'd rather have a matcha latte, made fresh, on the house. Not a swap she'd pay for. A do-over, free, because somewhere in the middle of the cup, her feelings had moved on. The barista pointed at what was left, which was about 2 swallows. An empty cup usually settles the question of whether somebody enjoyed their drink. That's when the story got an upgrade. She hadn't been enjoying it. She'd been assessing it, running quality checks on their product as a favor to them. And the macchiato only failed her at the very bottom, in that last inch, after the other 80% went down without one complaint. 32. Imagine getting called ignorant at your own job because a video lied to somebody. Chicago, peak morning, line out the door, and a man orders a drink with a name that takes about 8 words to say. Some tall, rainbow-colored thing, 6 syrups deep, whipped cream on top, which he had watched a stranger make on TikTok. It is not on the menu. It has never been on any menu because it isn't a drink, it's a piece of content. The barista told him she had no idea what he was describing, and he came apart. Not over coffee either, over her education. He announced to the room that the people working there don't keep up with what's popular online. Their ignorance, he said, had just wrecked his daughter's birthday. Behind him, 20 people held their place in line, waiting on drinks that exist. 33. He was on a date. That one detail explains this entire meltdown. A guy in Chicago got to the register and the payment screen swung around toward him with the tip options showing. 20%, 25, 30, no thanks. Standard on every machine in America. He took it as a public accusation. He announced that the software had been built to embarrass him, calibrated to make him look cheap in front of the woman standing right there next to him. So he demanded the manager pull tipping out of the store's system permanently on his behalf. They told him nobody working that shift can switch it off for one customer. That's when he grabbed the screen and tried to flip it face down on the counter, calling the whole setup a shakedown. and his date stood beside him and watched every second of it. 34. She turned around and told a line of paying customers to be ashamed of themselves. That was her big finish, so back up to the bill. $40 in Los Angeles, lattes and avocado toast, and this travel influencer had no plan to pay any of it with money. Her offer was a mention on her Instagram story. The cashier explained, politely, that the register takes dollars and nothing else. That's when the shop became a relic, 20 years behind. No grasp of how promotion works now. No respect for the people who bring attention to small businesses. Then came the speech to everyone waiting. A dozen strangers with their cards already out, and she told them she was done with this place and they should be too. Every one of them, she said, was funding a business that hates creators. Nobody moved. Nobody put a card away. She left without the toast, and the register kept taking money from everybody else all afternoon. 35. Somewhere online there is a review calling a coffee shop hostile to people with complicated feelings. The offense was cheerful music. In an Austin cafe, a man sat down with his journal, in a mood, and the speakers were playing something upbeat, the kind of thing you put on so a room feels pleasant at 9 in the morning. It clashed with whatever he had going on inside, so he brought it to the counter as a request. Could they play funeral music, real dirges, if they had any on hand? And if not, heavy doom metal would do. Anything with weight to it, something that matched the day he was having. The barista turned him down, politely, on the grounds that the other 40 people in the room had ordered coffee and not a soundtrack. He didn't push it. He packed up his journal, went home, and typed the review instead. Coffee shops keep serving these people, every day. So tell me, does a barista have the right to respond rudely to such customers, or should they just do their job without saying a word? Answer that in the comments, and be honest if you've ever been the one holding up the line. Hit like, subscribe, and stick around for the next batch